And we are now live. Michelle Waterson, thank you for coming on today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Real pleasure to be talking to you. As obviously I said off camera, I never thought I'd get a response back, so that's super cool. It's made my day. And yeah, just really appreciate your time. First question I'd like to sort of fire at you is a real simple one, and it's for those that may be tuning in that might not know about you. Tell them about yourself and your background.
So right now I fight for the UFC. I'm ranked seventh in the strawweight division. I've been fighting professionally in MMA for probably I'd say about 12 years now. And before that, I was doing martial arts since I was a kid. I've been doing martial arts for over 20 years. So my specialty is karate. I got my black belt in American freestyle karate. And then I went off to learn jujitsu. I went off to learn kempo, wushu, and Muay Thai. And then as a young adult, I moved out to Albuquerque, which is where I started training at Jackson Winklejohn's. Um, and That's kind of where the bulk of my pro career has taken place, and also where I met my husband, who has been in my corner for um, most of my fights
Wonderful.
since since we've had our daughter. So we also have a daughter who is 7 years old now. Her name is Rhea, and she's a huge part of our this journey as well. And it's kind of just like a little fight family, and yeah, here we are.
So who's your biggest fan? Your husband or your daughter?
Um, I would say my daughter. My husband sometimes gets irritated with me when I don't listen.
I can imagine. So what got you into mixed martial arts in the first place?
Well, I have an older brother, and he kind of was my the person I looked up to as a kiddo. So when he got into martial arts, I naturally followed suit, and I absolutely became obsessed with it. I knew from that point on that I wanted martial arts to be a part of my life, no matter where it took me. And just when I became a young adult, I realized that I wanted to teach. And I just feel like if I want to teach, I would have to be able to tell my students that I've walked the walk. I'm a big believer in speaking or yeah, speaking through your actions. And so that's how I was raised. It was walk the walk, don't talk the talk. So I needed to walk the walk. I needed to take on those challenges myself, and it's become really rewarding for me, and something that has challenged me with each fight that I take, both mentally and physically. And so I continue to do it.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a really good move to do because obviously that gives the people that you're teaching kind of confidence that you know what you're going on about and how to deliver it because you've lived the life yourself and kind of been at the top of the game. Whereas you can get people out there that maybe haven't walked the walk and so on, who might not be as credible in teaching, and the students may be like, "Oh, what have you done with your time? Do you know what I mean? Why should I believe what you're saying is true?"
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, there are teachers that have never fought in their lives, and they're incredible, amazing teachers. I just, that's just kind of how I've always viewed it. And I think, especially being a female, um, would just have liked to know for myself that I could do it.
No, that makes perfect sense. How do you manage your nerves like before you fight? Because obviously must be an amount like a massive amount of pressure to be going in there to fight in front of people, and obviously it's a dangerous sport as well. You're not going in there or playing football or whatever, you're getting punched and kicked in the face. So what are your nerves like beforehand? What kind of goes through your mind, and how do you calm yourself?
Well, I think it's been a long journey of trying to figure that out, and think with each fight, it's still something that I'm trying to figure out. But the nerves is part of it. It's something that you should really embrace and allow to propel you. You know, that how I explain it is you get the same. The same feeling you get before you're gonna ride on a roller coaster is the same feeling you get when you almost get in a car accident, or is if when you get in a car accident. And it's just how you perceive those emotions. And so taking those nerves and actually using it to your benefit, and then allowing it to awaken, your spirit or get you in the zone is what I've really been trying hard to do.
Yeah,
And
go on.
I think that just it's my personality to rise to the occasion. So I feel like when I'm under the lights, that's when I perform the best.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's like the perks of managing your emotions, like you said, with the nerves, because obviously you can have that fight or flight kind of aspect, and a good example would be like a sprinter. In 100 meters, there's people that will like fire off the line perfect and have the best race of their lives, but there's people that will freeze on the start line and don't know how to move because they're so nervous they get like stage fright. I think you'd call it. So I suppose it's a really good thing for yourself to be able to manage them and use them in a positive way, rather than kind of stepping into the octagon and being like, oh my god, this is so much pressure, I'm so nervous, what's going on? So
It is, yeah.
I mean, credit to you
And
for that.
it does happen. You can't. You, every fight's different, every moment's different, but that's the ultimate goal, right? Is to go out there and to allow yourself to just be in the moment. And that's why we do these things is to try to find our individual zone.
Do you have any pre-fight rituals at all? Like, do you do anything the night before, or um, like, do you have like lucky pants or something that you wear when you're going and fighting, like anything like that?
No, I don't. I feel like I just feel like it would be too much. It would mess with my mind if something didn't happen, if I had to do something ritually and it wasn't able to happen. There's just too many variables. Fight week, fight night. It always changes. So um, I don't I don't know what mm, any there's no way that I could have a type of ritual because everything's always changing, and I wouldn't want to mess myself up having a ritual and not being able to do it.
Yeah, and I suppose being a mother obviously throws any sort of rituals that you might have out the window, because obviously parenting in its own world is a tough battle, I can imagine.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, since Araya has been born, she has been to every single one of my fights, and and, and that has been pretty awesome. So I don't know if you want to call that a ritual. I don't know if it's something that we'll continue to do. If we can, we will.
What's that? Just have her at the fights?
Yeah, bring her to the fights.
Yeah, I think she'd always be there.
Yeah, so we weren't going to bring her to Germany with us when we were scheduled to fight out there. But she's older now, and if we can bring her along for the ride and let her experience the journey too, and let her be a part of it, I think it's really cool and something that she can hold on to for the rest of her life.
So, Joshua, what's it like for yourself as well, being sort of on the outside watching Michelle perform on the inside? Do you get nervous, or like when maybe she gets punched in the octagon, do you find yourself getting a bit fired up, like, that's my wife in there? Do you know what I mean? Like, being on the outside, how do you control your emotional state?
No, you know what? I have to kind of, and I've had to learn this along the years, but kind of just detach my relationship with Michelle. And at that time, it's kind of more of a coach, right? So when she is competing, I'm not even watching her. To be honest, I'm watching the other person, and I'm trying to figure out what's open, what are their habits, what are their tendencies, and that works out the best, right? If I'm worried about Michelle, then obviously we didn't do something right.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense, man. I get you. You've got complete sort of faith and trust that she's going to go in there and do what you've been training.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you don't need to necessarily focus on her, as well as obviously you're looking at the opponent, finding things that you can exploit to obviously pass the message on.
Exactly. That's right.
And as well as obviously your daughter being there as well, I'm sure that gives you it gives you something else to think about as well.
Yeah, you know what? But when our daughter's there, she's with either it's my sister-in-law, it's my mother-in-law, um, or some family person is there with her, and so I make sure before the fight, I'll talk to security, I'll talk to sometimes even Dana, whoever it is that we have to talk to make sure that everything's going to be fine there. That way, I can just relax and focus on what Michelle has coming up. And the UFC's always done a great job as far as helping us out there. So.
That's cool, man. What is your training regime like, Michelle? Like fight camp wise?
Well, we train 6 days a week. We have 1 day for recovery. Throughout the week, we have morning practice every day at the gym, and that's basically like a team practice. And it varies on the day. It's different types of sparring, whether it's MMA sparring, big 16-ounce glove sparring, wrestling, or MMA jiu-jitsu. And then I do strength and conditioning twice a week. And then I do jiu-jitsu 3 times a week. And then I do mitt work anywhere between 3 and 4 times a week. And then I run every morning. And then we do a sprint session once a week. And that's kind of give or take the schedule. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, depending on my body and how it's feeling.
So how do you manage your time, like being a mother and like a professional MMA fighter in those moments?
I would say huge help is Josh. Josh and my mom. My mom usually comes down to help me watch the little one, and so Josh, he comes with me to the gym. He's an extra eye when I'm sparring. We go for runs together, but he also does a lot of the things that aren't necessarily the hardest things to do, but just very time consuming, like taking Araya to school, picking her up from school, doing homework with her, packing her lunch, all those little things that you overlook, but really, cut into your day when you're trying to focus on a fight.
Which is it cuts into
Yeah, go on.
I was going to say it cuts into the recovery time, which is probably just as important as the training.
100%. I mean, Tyson Fury was talking on the Joe Rogan show about like overtraining and how you can go step inside like the boxing ring and you feel like you're in mud because you've overtrained too much. So I definitely would say recovery is a massive, massive part of being at an elite level, which I think a lot of people seem to neglect or think, oh, I don't need to recover. I need to train more and more and more and more.
Yeah, and that's how the fighter's always going to be. Like that's the fight. That becomes the fight or the tough part between me and Michelle, because I'll be able to see her, and I'll see her body language or whatever, and so I'll call it and I'll say, hey, you know what, today we're going to just chill. We're not going to do anything, or let's go watch a movie or something. And in her mind, it's nope, let's go. And it's a bit of a fight, but we gotta kind of pull the reins back a little bit. Because you're right, athlete's always going to be go.
Yeah. So, random question: who would win out of a little spar out of you two? If you was gonna have a little spar, you two in, little pads. Who wins? Who wins?
If I sneak attack him, then I win. But he's just like way too big and strong. I think he would bully me.
No, Michelle's that would be a show in its own for someone to watch when we do spar, because I have a tendency of smiling and laughing at her, and I tell her this, but I don't think it matters at the time. In her mind, she wants to really hurt me, I think, and in my mind, I'll smile and laugh at certain shots, and I tell her that I'm not laughing because I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because it hurts. You know what I mean? You're I feel your leg. I feel my bone. So it just. I try and tell her I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because this hurts, And yeah. It's funny for sure.
Michelle, does that wind you up a little bit when he's like laughing at you and you're just like, oh my
Oh
god?
my gosh, it gets my blood boiling, and I just, anything I do to him, it's not going to hurt him like it would somebody that I was fighting that was my own weight. And so it's just one of those things. It's like no matter what, I'm going to have a hard round. And in my mind, I'm like, he's just playing with me basically, and I'm having like one of the hardest rounds of my camp, and he's just over here laughing at me.
So who's been your toughest opponent so far?
I would say for I don't think you can really compare who's your toughest opponent because every fight's different. You're a different fighter going into each fight, and you're in a different place. Your opponent is different stylistically. Um, I would say that having to fight Courtney Casey after a two fight loss streak was hard mentally, but it wasn't because of her as the opponent, but just in the space that I was in mentally. The hardest opponent, then I think, like I said, there's nobody that I can really think of off the top of my head. Everybody's challenging in their own ways, so I couldn't tell you.
No, that's cool. Um, I know 2017 was like quite a difficult year for you. How did you overcome the things that happened then, and how did that affect your mentality and drive moving forward with life?
I think I just had to remind myself of the reason why I was fighting. You can get to a point in your career where you forget about those things. You forget about the why. You forget about how much fun it is, and that martial arts is my passion. And instead, all of those thoughts are replaced with the pressure of winning, with the pressure of moving up the ranks, the pressure of entertaining the crowd, the pressure of building your brand, the pressure of winning, because the difference between a win and a loss in the UFC is half your pay. Um, the pressure of trying to bring home money for your family, all those things begin to add up, and it gets in the way of what you really should be set out to do, which is to win the fight, and to show the world what you have as an athlete.
Hmm. What are your future plans within sort of the UFC? What's your main goal? Obviously, I assume it's going for the title.
Yeah, 100%. It wasn't really something that I would say out loud, but for sure, after my last fight, talking to Joe on the mic and just saying, I want to be the first champion in the UFC who is a mother. And I think and I hope that that would be a huge motivation for a lot of other, not just mothers, but parents out there all over the world to continue to strive for their goals, even as parents.
So, Joshua, what's it like for you having to sort of support Michelle as a husband when she's going through her fight camps and things like that? Is that quite stressful for yourself, or is it fairly easy going and you just kind of crack on?
No, I think we do a good job of just kind of like cracking on, like you said. I feel like when we are in fight camp, we kind of get a lot more structured and organized because now we have our, she has training at this time. We're gonna hit mitts at this time. She has jujitsu at this time, and so everything's kind of, we sit down weekly. We'll plan it out for the week, and we get things really going. So stressful wise, I mean, it's just no, it's just like any other family. I think certain obstacles are always going to be there. So I think it was just kind of figuring out what works. And I think now the last two fights, I'd say even really just the last fight, I think we've gone a really good pattern.
Would you say like preparation is very much key to it being sort of easy and not non-stressful now? Because obviously, if I assume if you didn't prepare like and didn't have this structure in place, that everything would kind of go all over the place and things might
Well,
not
yeah,
happen and that might affect
yeah.
Michelle as well.
Yeah, no. And I think even going back to your last question, as far as me managing the stress, so the last two fights, we completely switched things around, especially on my end. Um, so I have my own business, and so what happened is now, the whole morning is basically off for Michelle. And what we would do is, like she said, I'll go to her gym. I'm an extra eye, figure out what's working, what's not. I have a good relationship with Coach Wink and Joey, and so we talk to each other. We're all on the same page, and then whatever we have to work on, kind of just instill in Michelle's mind 100 times or a million times or whatever it's got to be. We can do it here at home, and I know exactly what the coaches want, and so because of that, it makes me a lot more confident, and so again, then there's kind of it limits the stress because again, now I know, hey, the work's been done, and so it keeps us kind of confident.
Going off on a little tangent, just kind of something I wanted to ask. Obviously, you don't have to answer. For kind of questions for both of you is, what would you say is like the success behind like a strong relationship for yourselves? Like how have you made it work and everything
I
like
think
that?
communication for me. What would you say, babe?
Yeah, communication and just being vulnerable and just like a transparency of like true emotions and feeling okay to share those emotions with your spouse, whether or not it's going to hurt your spouse's feelings. I think it's important to say them rather than bottle them up, sweep them under the rug, or pretend like those emotions aren't there, because your spouse isn't going to know if there's a problem, if you're irritated, if you're sad, if you're mad, if you don't say anything. And maybe they might be able to figure it out by your body language. And in your mind, you might think that they should be able to figure it out, especially if you've been with them for over 10 years. But sometimes you just can't. And sometimes just trying to play mind games with your spouse is just exhausting. And it's better to just get it out there. And sometimes those are hard conversations to have, but they're better to have been had than not at all.
Yeah, but so yeah, just like we were saying, so the communication I think is huge, um, and just like what Michelle was saying, but also sometimes it's maybe not having the conversation at a certain moment, right? Because sometimes people can be upset and mad and heated and ready to just say the first thing that's on their mind. Luckily for us, Michelle has some frustration. She can go work out. I have some frustration. I enjoy working out, so I can work out as well. And that allows the person to kind of think and, okay, what is it that I'm trying to say to my wife or to my husband? Um, I mean, communication is huge. And I wouldn't have said that years ago. I'm Mexican, right? So the Latin community, we don't really communicate really well. But Michelle's kind of over the years brought it out of me, and I think now.
We've gotten it's been at points where we're arguing. He doesn't want to talk to me, and I can't move forward until the argument or the problem is resolved. So he'll walk away and go into the room, and I literally follow him, and then he'll try to leave the room, and I'll literally close the door and sit in front of the door like a little kid until he talks to me.
And
But
well, that was years ago, yeah, for sure. but here's the thing. So this was again work on both ends, right? Because I would tell Michelle like, hey, listen, I'm not. We're gonna get to this, but I need to process my thoughts, right? Because if I have a conversation with you right now, it's not gonna come out well, and I might say something that I completely don't mean, but I'm upset right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, and so I think we both kind of had to learn that. Where Michelle's like, no, let's talk about it now. And sometimes for me it was like, no, let's give me a minute, right? Give me 10 minutes. And so yeah, so it's just been a learning process, and I think we've done a great job of growing together, right? Because people change, and
Yeah.
that's what it should be. You should grow, and I think me and Michelle have done a really good job of just talking every day, every night, every morning, and kind of grown together. So we've been very fortunate for sure.
Yeah, it's good, and I assume obviously you both see kind of your lives going in the well. You saw your lives going in the right direction together, and made the commitments needed, and
Mm.
communication. Obviously, yeah, I agree with you. Is like a massive massive thing that a lot of people can neglect. They can just repress their issues and, you know, put it in a glass bottle or sweep it under the rug, but eventually the bottle's gonna break or the rug's gonna be showing the dirt, and then it all comes out in one big moment, and that can potentially ruin a relationship. So it's good
Oh
that you
yeah.
two have learned that.
Yeah, and you know, it can get really bad if you let it boil up like that. And you can and that's why I think that's where the saying comes, you know, you hurt the ones you love the most.
Mm.
So, and it's because like I feel like you think that they can handle it, but there's a point too where there can be a point where you've crossed the line and there is no turning back from it. You just have to be careful that you don't allow your relationship to get to that point.
So, Michelle, how did you get back into shape after childbirth? Because obviously you're in really good shape now. And what was that process like for you?
I think that for me, it was just first of all accepting my new body as a mother and understanding that I'm different, and some of the changes were bad, some of the changes were really good. I think that being a mother gave me a newfound motivation. My bones were really kind of loose because you know when you're getting ready to have a baby, they need to loosen up. So my bones and my joints felt like they weren't stable. So instead of doing anything that was high impact like running, I would swim for my cardio, and that helped me a lot get my shape down, and also just kind of being patient with my body and learning to listen to my body. You know, I kept telling myself it took me 10 months to make this little baby inside my body, and so I took my first fight back 10 months after I had Araya. And in my mind, that was an equal amount of time that I could have to get back into to fight shape. And obviously, it wasn't what I was before I had Araya, but just having a goal in front of me and having a fight set, I think helped as well. Because if I didn't have a fight set, I think I might have been comfortable with just staying at home and eating my Cheeto Puffs.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing. So, like Michelle said, we had our daughter March 18th, and then Michelle fought, I think, early December. So right away there was a quick goal, and so we didn't give her a chance. And you mentioned that Tyson Fury podcast, right? Michelle didn't have a chance to just sit back and not kind of mope and think about the fight game. It was like, hey, I have a fight coming up in December. We have a lot of work to do. We had to get a lot of weight off. And so right away we started running, working out, and going after it.
That's a smart move, man. Like a massive motivator. Do you know what I mean? Because I agree. Like a lot of women, obviously after birth, could easily sit back and be like, "Yeah, you know, giving birth to this child, that's great. Like this is all fine. Don't worry about anything
Yeah, and,
else."
you continue eating, right? Well, then what happens? Like you get bigger, people get depressed, people get, don't want to do anything, you don't have any energy.
Mm.
Um, and men too, man. I've been there before, right? So you got to just go attack it, and so that was scary for us because again, we we put on some good amount of weight for that pregnancy, and we had to, you fought at 105.
Yeah, and you know, I'm I have to say this because if I don't, then I'm not being realistic. After I had Araya, I didn't want to fight. Like there was a moment, there was a period of time when I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to be with my baby that had grown inside me, and I wanted to be nurturing, and I wanted to be at home, and I wanted to nurse my baby, and I wanted to just be a mom. My mind was definitely not on fighting, and that's okay too. You know, you have to allow yourself those times too, and don't feel guilty about those moments either.
Hmm. Yeah, and yeah.
No, yeah, I agree as well. Obviously, I was kind of just saying that people will slump into that for like a long period of time, and they always
Mhm.
never kind of then get back into the shape they want to be in. They've kind of adopted that mentality of like, I'm just gonna, sit back here and chill. But obviously, having that goal in mind helped push Michelle in the right direction, and I'm sure uh, Joshua, you maybe helped as well by sort of pulling her towards like, come on, we need to get up and go, and you're gonna be
Yeah,
fighting in December.
yeah. I mean, yeah. There's times, obviously, she just had a little one, and I mean, shoot, we got to work right away. We might have maybe had like 2 weeks off after she had our little one, and then it was running time. So we bought a stroller that was meant for running, and all right, let's go. And so there was days and mornings where she didn't want to go run, and it was let's go.
Yeah. Michelle, would you consider joining the WWE after your MMA career? Kind
Of
of like
course,
Ronda
I'd
Rousey.
like to put my hands on Rousey.
Nice, good.
Um, yeah, I think it would be awesome. It's a physical sport, something that still requires you to be athletic, and it's something that I think would be lots of fun to do. That it's going to allow me to work on some more of my acting skills and some scripted stuff, some choreography, fighting stuff that's going to help me try to break into the movies for action films. All that good stuff.
And what was it like fighting on the biggest ever UFC pay-per-view event? What was that like for you, knowing that all those people were tuning in? Was it just another day in the office, or was there a bit more?
Definitely not. No, for sure it wasn't. It was a huge stage. So I had to embrace the stage, but at the same time, I did have to tell myself that at the end of the day, a fight's a fight, and when you step into the octagon, it's just you and your opponent across from you. And I just kept reminding myself that if I didn't go out there and be me, then I would regret it for the rest of my life. And so I just told myself to go out there and just let it fly. Let's just let it happen. I know what I have to offer. I know what kind of skills that I have. And as long as I go out there and I be me, then I'm not going to regret anything.
And Paige Van Zant's obviously confirmed to be fighting in January. Would you like to fight her again sometime, or are you not too fussed about that one?
You know, I think I beat Paige pretty soundly. And
Yeah.
she's on a different journey, as am I. I feel like if that fight was to happen again, she'd have to come back down to 115 and break into the top 10 of the division for me even to consider it being worth my time.
Mm. So we've been on for 32 minutes, and I know you only had sort of 30-minute slot, so we can wrap it up if you're okay with that.
Of course. So thank you so much for having us.
No, thank you both for coming on and talking to me. Like I said, I was shocked to even get a response. So
No, yeah,
massively
sorry, this took us
appreciate it.
a little bit longer.
No, honestly, I'm grateful for your time. Even if you had said 10 minutes, I would have went on board making time for you, because to talk to you two has been an absolute pleasure. And obviously, Michelle, I know you're more than likely super busy with loads of people wanting to chat with you and so on. So yeah, I really, really, really do appreciate that loads. So yeah, thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, Joshua, I'll talk to you off live for 2 seconds if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, thank you for coming on, Michelle, and cheers. And we'll wrap this up. Thank you.
Cheers.